Hey folks, welcome back to another Polemas video. Today we're going to talk a bit about the upcoming special costume Zinnia Thievul, which is dropping this reset, which as usually will be pulling for live, so make sure to tune in for that one. Subscribe to the channel, notifications, all that stuff. And alright, let's talk about the unit. So this unit, it's a special costume unit. And as a first of all, it's a really cool special costume. Well, at least I think it's cool. But, you know, outside of that, it's a great unit. It is a really nice unit, legitimately, right? For a few reasons. And mostly, I'd say for Gauntlet 2, like, we've been getting a lot of, like, real heavy hitters for Gauntlet recently. And you know, she's one of those, right? And main reason being this stat, like blocking, like buff block shield thing, whatever you want to call it, right? Which does come on her B move, where, you know, it first of all returns the target's raise stats to normal, then raises, you know, your same stats by the same amount. It's a snatch plus gives a no stat increase effect to the opponent's field of play, which is really nice, because, well, there's a few legendary gauntlets that could really use a unit like this to stop them from buffing very annoying stats, right? I mean, almost all of them buff stats, you know, one way or another to benefit them, but there's just some particularly annoying ones, being, you know, I'd say Cresselia and Latios. There's a few more here and there too. I guess you could maybe say like the Regirock buffs are slightly annoying, or you could say the Azalf or yeah, like a lot of them buff, right? And could be annoying, and but I'd say the big ones again are still Cresselia and Latios. And obviously over here you take those buffs away. Not only to take them away, you also stop them from buffing for a sync cycle at least, which is, you know, probably long enough, right? And yeah, on top of that, you know, you also have the stat reduction defense to your team, right? As well, so it's not only they can't buff their stats, it's also they can't debuff your team stats, which is nice as well. And yeah, that's just again really good, right? For example, if you're facing like an Azalf, if you're facing, you know, something like Regirock or whatever, there's a lot, again, there's also a lot of debuffers from the gauntlet side too, right? So yeah, on top of that, you have, you know, team attack buffs, which is always nice for a tech unit, right? It's a tech unit, not a support, so that's really cool. And then you have dark type rebuff, right? You have dark type rebuff. You have this, which is cool, which is basically, as long as, you know, the opponents don't have any like stat buffs, you get a free move next afterwards, which, you know, after you steal their stats, give them the no stat increase effect, right? Like, you're just getting free moves basically for at least one sync cycle, even longer if they, you know, if the opponent is past their, you know, stat buffing phase, right? So that's pretty nice. And then on top of that, stat wise, you got really high physical attack. Nothing else really stands out, I'd say, outside of really high physical attack, but that does come in, you know, handy quite a bit because of the incredibly powerful sync nuke, right? You got you know, unbuff foe sync up 9 and Rising Tide as well, right? On top of having, you know, the tech innate and like 400 something physical attack, right? You get EX tech in there as well. You just, you know, it's one of the top sync nukers in the entire game, which is very powerful. And yeah, you also have, you know, the ability to debuff the opponent's physical defense, right? With Crunch, you can pick up Crunch on a roll 2, or you could just get Defense Crush 9 on Crunch as well, so, you know, guaranteed defense debuffs. So yeah, just got a lot of stuff there. DPS wise, it's alright. It's not anything like super crazy, but, you know, you also have stuff like Insult to Injury and like better Prepare 3, whatever, right? As, you know, just some regular move multipliers, not you know, anything nuts, just because like Crunch's like base power isn't very high. Not that it's like low either, but, you know, it's not anything crazy. But yeah, that's I'd say most of its you know, main capabilities, right? There's a few other things that it could do, right? If you do have 3 out of 5, you have the 70% chance to flinch, when the opponent, you know, doesn't have any of its stats raised. So if they don't raise their stats, it's 7% chance to flinch. Might be like one of the top, you know, flinch rates in the game, obviously outside of Lyra and Steven's like guaranteed flinches, right? But yeah, this is a very, very, very high chance to flinch. And yeah, again, there's a few other things here and there. You get move gauge acceleration. There's this randomizer raise, which, I mean, sure. I mean, I don't really care about this too much, just because it's like, I don't know. It's like, it doesn't cost a lot. It's like 5 energy, but you only get like 2 of these anyway. So like, it's just what random stat. I don't really care about this, but it exists. It's just something else that exists in the grid, right? You could also extend the status increase as well, right over here. So that's also pretty nice. And yeah, which, speaking of, if you're trying to pull for her, right, how many copies do you want to go for? 1 out of 5, I'd say, is mostly enough if you just want to use her as a tech unit for just stopping certain gauntlet opponents, right? 1 out of 5 is totally fine enough. The thing you're mostly missing out on at 1 out of 5 is her big sync nuke, which really just only comes in at 3 out of 5. But otherwise, for all the other stuff, 1 out of 5 is completely enough, right? Other than that, let's go 2 out of 5. 2 out of 5, I feel like, is kind of whatever. I mean, you do get some stuff over here. You get on a roll on crunch, on a roll 2 on crunch. Yeah, I think that's like the main decent one. Super Sinker, I don't even care. Like, Super Sinker is not even that huge of a deal, right? It's not like, you know, she's not like a massive DPS unit. But it's really this. Everything else, again, like randomizer raise. No, not really, right? But yeah, I guess you could pick it up just because, like, you know, it's 2 out of 5. You know, too many other options. But yeah, I don't think 2 out of 5 is really worth going for. It's either 1 out of 5 or 3 out of 5. All right, 3 out of 5, you get your big sync nuke stuff. Over here, down here as well, right? You have the 70% chance to flinch when they don't have any stats buff. You have the guaranteed chances of debuff physical defense, right? The extension on the no stat increase thing, the field effect. So yeah, you got a lot of great things at 3 out of 5. I'd say, you know, half of them damage. You know, the other half are more techie stuff. Well, maybe it's like 70% damage, 30% like techie stuff. But yeah, I'd say if you're trying to pull for 1 out of 5 or 3 out of 5, right? So, all right, let's go over some lucky skill, sync grid, team comp stuff, right? So, for lucky skill, it really depends on what you're trying to do with her, right? If you're trying to go for that like big nuke, obviously you could go for something like, you know, Crit Strike 2. Otherwise, it really depends. There's a lot of options you could potentially go for. You could go for maybe like Fast Track just because her like speed isn't super great. Although she could steal, you know, speed buffing stats and such. What else? You know, just the usual Head Start Adrenaline. Depending on the team, that could be something, I guess. But yeah, I'd say those are sort of the main ones. I wouldn't say there's like a premier like lucky skill that really want to run on her. Since she is facing a lot of like gauntlet situations, probably you could give her gauntlet specific skills, right? So those could probably work. But anyways, as for her sync grid at 1 out of 5, you could just pick up stuff like this, I'd say mostly. Maybe some power-ups on crunch, all these power-ups on the B move, and maybe the extra speed, and obviously everything if you have enough orbs. For 2 out of 5, again, there's not too much stuff, but I'd say at least, you know, pick up the on roll on the crunch. That's pretty nice. As for the rest, honestly, maybe like Natural Remedy, Escape Artist, stuff like this really just depends on the stage, right? Headstrong, right? You know, she does have like the stat reduction shield, but as for anything else, I guess you could pick up the randomizer raise 9. I mean, you know, not anything significant, but at least something. If you do need to max out your team's physical attack, right, then definitely pick up the MPR over here. But as for anything else, I don't really know. Yeah, I don't know. These are all kind of whatever. Okay. Moving on to 3 out of 5. I mean, like, sure, if you're literally just facing super effective and you are relying on her to do damage at 2 out of 5, which is slightly, that's slightly cope, unfortunately. But anyways, moving on 3 out of 5. Right, so you have your big sync nuke stuff. So if you do want to nuke with her, you could probably do something like this, I believe. No, down here, right? So you get all the sync move power up nodes, the multipliers, right? And then you also get an extra other stuff, the block extension for the node stat increase. That could be nice, right? And I guess natural remedy. Can we do this acceleration thing without going completely broke? No, we can't. All right, well, you'll take natural remedy and you'll like it then, I guess. Pick up the attack if you want actually a bit of damage or speed. Doesn't really matter. So yeah, that's for if you want to nuke. I'd say if you're trying to go for a more, just tech stuff, right? Like against a gauntlet stage, you could go for stuff like the staggering hit, right? That's 70% chance again for the flinch. Between these two, I don't know, they're both pretty bad just because they cost a lot, unless you need the extra X attack all NPR. If you do need the X attack all NPR, then it's no brainer to go for it, right? Go for this path, or you could just go something like this. And yeah, the defense crush on crunch is nice, but actually yeah, you go for both honor roll and defense crush. So especially if you do have like another physical unit on the team, that could definitely benefit, right? So as for team comps, if you just want to go for like that massive nuke, then you could do something like this, right? You throw champion Caleb in there for the dark zone, also the the extra buffs and stuff, right? And you could have Singsuit, or well, not Singsuit, champion Serena, right, for the dark rebuff, and you go absolutely nuts with that massive again, a dark nuke, right? And then on top of that, you could also get like -3 dark rebuff, because Serena could get into, and then she also has dark rebuff as well, so you can actually max out a dark rebuff on the opponent, which could be kind of crazy. Obviously, you could still swap it out for something like a Darkrai instead if you prefer going Dark Zone with Darkrai, or if you just don't have any Dark Zone, you could just if you're trying to use her as a damage healer, right? Again, for Dark Weak stages, you could run her with something like Galarian Moltres, mostly because it's Galarian Moltres and she's really good. Although there's not like too much synergy here, I'm gonna be real, but otherwise, you can maybe do the other Marnie, right? Just because this other Marnie is physical. This Marnie or the Summer Marnie, right? The physical Dark Marnies over here, that could probably work, or even something like Nessa with that jaw lock, right? That could definitely be nice. Just because again the defense crush with the physical defense debuffs over there. But yeah, that's just mainly if you want to do damage with her. As for the support, it could really be anything. Just make sure you have someone to at least give her, I guess, just the extra +2 physical attack, right? If you want more, that's fine too, right? Just saves her a few turns of doing it herself. And other than that, just any support that could just give her more random buffs for the Rising Tide. I guess if you also want to support her longer for her nukes in longer battles, I guess you could also throw in like another unit that could steal the opponent's stats or nullify them. So any units with like Haze or Snatch, so something like OG Grimsley or Lear or even Bryson, right? SS Misty, whatever, right? Those sort of units. Otherwise, if you're looking for team building for just her as like a tech sort of unit versus gauntlets, those obviously just really depends on which gauntlet opponent you're facing. And she is kind of like a just plug and play unit. You could really throw her in like almost any team, and she could do really effectively against someone like Latios or not Latios. Anyone could be effective against Latios, but Latios and Cresselia or stuff like that, right? You just throw her in there anywhere. I'd say preferably in physical teams, just because she could give, again, the extra physical attack buffs or the physical defense debuffs. But again, realistically, you throw her in like special teams, and as long as she's being helpful in combating the opponent's stat buffs or their stat debuffs, right? That's always just gonna be good. As for some pros and cons, I guess, so first of all, you got the stat steals, obviously, and on the other side of that is the stat debuff shields as well. You also have dark rebuff, which is just nice to have, I guess, right? And, you know, free moves, you got defense, physical defense debuffs. Yeah, her B move actually does like some really good damage. So there's that. Her like crunch damage honestly isn't even like terrible. It's just that it's a function of like, are you really gonna commit to that? Are you really gonna commit to like picking stuff up like insult to injury and you know, better prepared 3, when you can instead spend that energy going for like one of the like top nukes in the game, which, you know, her DPS can be solid, but just compared to her nuke, I would say spending more energy on her nuke or stuff like staggering hit, right? I'd say would be a bit more worth it. Although I guess you could at least be prepared. You could pick it up while you're going to staggering hits, so that's like not that bad of a deal over there. Well, yeah, it's just good gauntlet unit overall. Just a lot of really nice things she does. As for some cons, I guess it's really just, you know, she just gets significantly weaker when the opponent actually does have buffs. And to tie in with that, her B move is only one use, unfortunately, right? So during the period when you do steal the buffs and stop them from buffing, right, she just gets a lot of crazy stuff, right? Again, like the 70% flinch, the free move next every single time, the massive nuke, right? All that stuff. Those are all great. But once the opponent does buff back, right, it's you lose just a lot of stuff there. And again, she could really only just do that once. So yeah, unless you run like a secondary stat nullifier on your team, you know, after that period, she's kind of just it's not like she's doing nothing on the team anymore, right? She still has those attack buffs. She still could debuff the opponent's physical defense, whatever, right? But she does lose a decent portion of her usefulness, unfortunately. So to sum it up, I guess she's just really nice. Nuker has a lot of great gauntlet capabilities. In terms of how worth she is pulling for, really kind of sort of depends, right? You know, do you play gauntlet or not a lot? Not that she's bad in mass mode. I think she's honestly, like, for a more gauntlet focused unit, she's like pretty nice in mass mode too, right? Like, her stuff isn't super hard to set up. It's actually pretty, you know, it's not that bad to set up, honestly, right? You know, she could pretty much excel in quicker battles too, especially since her like gimmick, her main gimmick doesn't like last super long, right? So she's gonna be nice in mass mode. She's gonna be you know, even more important in certain gauntlet streak extensions, right, and all that stuff. Yeah, and her downsides, like, she really doesn't have that many cons to her, right? I guess if you want to, like, oh, she can't tank. Okay, sure, I guess. but like, she can nuke, right? I mean, if you can't tank, as long as you could do good damage, then, you know, there's still something there, right? To run on. And, you know, she doesn't only do good damage, she does all the other, you know, really nice cool tech stuff. That being said, her one con is kind of critical, right? Where when the opponent, again, when they do buff one stat, even just like one stat, right? Because there are like certain opponents, I believe, like for example, like Entei, right? Entei does have the passive where it's like a guaranteed defense or like special defense buff every time it uses a move. So in stages like that where the opponents are constantly buffing themselves, after your period is over with the no stat buff increased shield, right, you are kind of just not doing as much, right? Like you kind of cut out, like, I'd say like probably at least 60%, right? Obviously I just you know, made up that percentage on the spot, but like 60-70% of her kit is kind of just not really there anymore, unfortunately. So there is kind of that part to her, right? Again, I don't think she has a lot of weaknesses, but her one weakness when that thing does happen is kind of critical. It's kind of critical. It's not as bad. It's not as bad as like the Emma thing, right? I'd say not as bad as the Emma Crobat thing, but it's similar. It's similar. I'd say it's more of like a Singsu Lysander-ish situation. Right, although Singsu Lysander, I'd say, is probably going to be a lot more effective, right? Even if he doesn't have his B move, you know, available or whatever, just because, you know, he's just so overpowering even without the B move. So yeah, I do feel like that is kind of a critical weakness. In terms of like competing banners, there's not really too many crazy banners up at the moment since like the Master Fair banners are gone, right? It's just really, there's like SC Stevens, pretty nice. There's, I think May and Brendan is still up. How long is that banner going to be up for? Is it done when this banner comes up? But anyways, I guess there's also that. And yeah, so there's not like too much competition now, right? So, you know, in comparison to when Stevens, SC Steven banner came out, right? I'd say there's a lot more competition there in terms of banner wise. You can still wait to see what comes in the next update, because I'm pretty sure we're getting really close to the Alolanville arc, which should be pretty, you know, massive in terms of units, at least hopefully, right? So yeah, I'd say you can still wait for that one. Overall, I'd probably give her a pull rate of like 6.8 out of 10 for, again, multiple reasons. Just really, really useful in both the two main modes. And also, there's just not too much banner competition out there right now, right? I'd say she's probably one of the better units to really pull for. If you really have to use your gems, I'd say she's not a bad banner to pull on. It's like, again, it's either hers or SC Stevens or the Brendan May one, right? So yeah, not too much competition out there. I guess the Klefki ones, you know, yeah, they're also still up, right? The Klefki one's not you know, bad either, but it's yeah, I guess she just benefits from the lack of like super dominant banners that are up right now that you just kind of have to really go for, right? Unless you hate the characters, but yeah, if you like Zinnia, right, SC Zinnia, or if you're a big fan of Thievul, obviously you should always go for your favorites. But otherwise, it's worth considering. It's worth considering. But as always, right, with banners that last till like the next month, you could always just wait it out first, just to see what's coming up next. But yeah, anyways, all right, that's this one. I guess hope you all enjoyed them, guys. Think in the comments down below. Like, enjoy the videos. More time for more Pull Mouse content. Again, we'll be pulling for a live when that happens later tonight. So stay tuned for that. And I'll see you guys in the next one.